Hi everyone, and it's a pleasure to have you all here. Welcome to Skill Dojo's One webinar series, and today we have Sai Ram Kotha, the lead iOS developer at Swiggy. So the story is pretty interesting because he was a mining engineer, and it turned out now he is a computer science engineer and one of the lead iOS developer at Swiggy. And you can listen to the complete story and the path behind by the man himself. Let's have Sai Ram. Saram, you can unmute and go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. Hi everyone. Good evening, everyone. So myself, I'm Sai Ram Kotha. I graduated from IIT Kharagpur in mining engineering, and I have been working with Swiggy for the last 4 years. And I worked on the Swiggy consumer app, and which is on Swift language, and also I worked on the delivery application which the delivery fleet uses it, which is on React Native, and also I worked on the backend part of it as well, so which is on the Java and Golang, and also I worked on multiple projects over the last 4 years. And before joining Swiggy, I've been working with other two startups as a iOS developer itself, and later I joined Swiggy around and continuing working in Swiggy itself. Yeah, can you go next? Yeah, how I started iOS development. So in college, I in my courses is a dual degree course, which is the BTech and MTech, which is 5 year course, and in that 5 year course, we have to do that project, which is for the fourth year and the fifth year. So I choose the software kind of a programming, which helps for me. And I worked on the image processing, which with the application on the mining, and it helped me in learning the image processing skills and also the Python language. So while I was working, I worked for 2 years on that project. Later, I also during my free time I used to work on the Android apps, and so I worked on the Android app and also the Java in Java language. So later, in my first job, uh, I got other opportunities in college as well. So I didn't choose to join because I don't want to work in the large MNCs. So I choose the startups to work and choose the startups to work. So I joined one of the startup in Delhi. So where I don't get the chance to work on Android app because there are Android apps, Android developers are there. So I was supposed to take the iOS opportunity, and my interests were around the mobile app development. So I choose iOS, and then afterwards I was continuing with the iOS, and it was more interesting for me. So than the Android, so I continued with the iOS. So early of my career, I used to work like 12 to 14 hours per day for learning and building the applications of iOS for that startups. And also GitHub was one of my favorite place to see the code and also learned a lot of things from the GitHub. And GitHub helped me a lot while I was in my early career. I've seen a lot of people depend on the Stack Overflow. I feel the GitHub is much more uh, better than the Stack Overflow. In GitHub, you can search for a code and you'll get the lot of perspectives from the different developers, and you can choose the better code in that. And can you go next? Yeah. Can you go to the next? Yeah. So first thing, you have to choose the industry domain in software. There are a lot of domains in software, but for me, I chose mobile app development, which is interesting for me. So and I built a lot of few Android apps in college, and so my interest were around the mobile app development. I and the first company also saw the apps that I developed, and they gave me the chance to work on the iOS. And later I continued with the iOS part of it. Yeah, yeah. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, I believe in the compound knowledge kind of a thing. So I used to learn every day, and I used to keep like it's an habit kind of a thing. Like so, I put around 2 hours per day kind of a thing in the learning, and I also subscribe a lot of newsletters and articles to catch up with the latest trends, and also podcasts for with a lot of developers where they're discussing about the problems, and why I used to listen while I commute, and also the online forums for upcoming trends kind of thing. I used to. So I believe the compounding knowledge over a period of time it helps. Yeah. What is the starting? Yeah, and can you go to the next slide? Yeah, I I used to read the code from the GitHub, and and that was, you can search for a particular code and get the different perspectives of the code. And I used to uh, see the GitHub trending repositories and find the code which interests me. And I used to do the code reviewing for the lot of open source repositories, and I used to read a lot of code from them. And GitHub is one of the better source for learning, and when you start seeing the other people code, and then you will start getting the how the different perspectives of the people and different perspectives of the code, how they are writing, and that way also you'll get a lot of different approaches how to solve the particular problem, and that also helped me in learning over the years. And yeah, next. Yeah, I believe in practicing the more we practice, the more the challenges you find it in the early, the more challenges you can success in the next levels. And I also see the lot of trending repositories, and also try on my local system practice those things. And also if I feel any of the improvements or bugs in that repositories, I used to raise a pull request, and that way also I contribute to the community of the open source. And yeah, and I kept that as an habit, so that continued me to learning over the years, and it helped me a lot. Yeah, next. Yeah, finding supportive community kind of thing. There are, if you choose a for every interest, there are a lot of communities around in the internet. Like if you choose machine learning, there are a lot of communities around it. So, and you can join the multiple communities. And I follow Swift community. Swift is a language which we used to write for iOS apps. So I follow the Swift community and see the latest trends around that Swift language. And also Swift is a new language that developed by Apple using the C++ language. So I used to see the Swift language forums, and I used to discuss with the other people as well. So what are the language trends? That way also it helps in following the language trends, and also understanding the trade-offs. Why do they choose it? And it also helps in understanding the compiler level understanding as well. Why did they choose the particular way of writing, and why did they took this architecture discussion, architecture work, and for on what basis they have taken those kind of things people used to discuss over there. And also followed the lot of IS communities things as well. Yeah, and there are a lot of conferences happening in every community kind of a thing. So even in the iOS and mobile and also backend, a lot of conference talks happens every year, and people come there and talk how they solved the particular things in their company, and also they discuss what are the trade-offs with those things, and that also helps in understanding the other people in other companies, how the things are going on. That also helps in learning with the new technologies as well. I also joined the Swift for TensorFlow design discussion, which is an open source. Everyone can join in that discussions as well, where they discuss about a lot of the TensorFlow is something like the ML, which is developed by Google, the TensorFlow, and they tried with the different languages, but they choose the Swift language. So they have every week they have the design discussions. Everyone can join there, and they discuss about a lot of the design challenges, and that way also you'll get to understand that what are the design challenges with their particular community, and also I learned a lot of design related things from that, and they discuss over around 1 to 2 hours, and it gives a lot of understanding about the Swift and also the machine learning kind of a technologies as well. So there are these kind of a communities are there around internet, and this kind of a communities helps in uh, understanding the latest and the upcoming trends for this particular things. Those kind of a things are also helpful. Yeah. Next thing is like build projects. The more you try to build your own, the more you get it. So I used to try a lot of open sources and try to build my own and try to replicate how they are doing it, and that way also it, and you'll find what are the challenges they are solving it. That also helps in understanding it. Yeah. Another thing is like building your own network. So there are a lot of there are a lot of open, there are a lot of things in the internet to improvise your network. One is the Twitter and the LinkedIn. You can connect with them, and you'll get a lot of things they discuss on the over the internet, and they also uh, share the knowledge with the people, and also they try to post some kind of things, and you can discuss over there and connect with them. And also there are uh, there are a lot of meetups happens in every place, and they discuss about the things, and also small learning topics also will be there in the meetups. That also helps in growing your network. It also helps in the more the network, and you can connect with them, and you can ask them that how did they solve the particular thing in their app or in their particular technology, how did they achieve that. That also helps in learning and optimizing your own things. Yeah. Next. Yeah. Tell the story. How did
Sai, there are few questions what
Yeah.
we have on the end. So the first question is, what is the starting point and which one to learn first?
So it depends on your interest. So for me, my interests were around the software, and which is more focusing on the mobile app development. So I started with the Android because during that time I used to have the Windows laptop. So Android is much more feasible, and also there are a lot of materials and tutorials over the internet. So I started with that, and it also depends for every person. So I feel that whatever your interest, you can start with that. That is where the my interests were around the um, mobile app development. So I started with that and started building the applications, and also learned the Java and also Android language, Android uh, Android ecosystem, and that way it helped me in, yeah.
Okay, so I think
Any
Aditya,
questions?
I feel your question has been addressed over here. There is BG who wants to ask, tell us the story how you got your first job and how you applied, how did you put in your resume and the other nitgrits of the first job.
Okay. So, f- um, I got in college. I attended the placements, and I got one of the opportunity which is not in software, but it is in the data analytics, and also my interests were around the software. So, and also that is also an MNC, so I didn't choose for joining there. And then I applied to the lot of startups, and and the startups are the good place to um, work at, because in the early stage you'll get a lot of focus, and also a lot of learning things, and also they take risk in helping you in learning those things, and also they give a lot of chances to grow, and those kind of things are there. And so I chose, I applied, and one of the startup, they replied that they have iOS developer role. So but I worked on the Android and Java kind of a Java language, and then they asked me like, would you open for iOS roles? Then I said that I would join, because my interests were around the mobile app development. Then I applied for that, and they took the interview rounds, and then I joined in the start in that startup. So I applied through online. Lot of you can get from angel.co, and you'll get understanding from what are the startups who are hiring from there. That way I got it.
There is one more question from Karthik, that platforms and books to practice. What are the platforms and books you suggest practicing from your own end?
So for me, majority of the things that help me is like the GitHub. So I still see the trending topics and do those things. And also there are a lot of newsletters for the particular community wise. You can follow them, and also podcasts to listen to them. And there are also a lot of books in software kind of things. And books also, I used to read in a week like 2 hours per week. And so the books are more than the books. I used to read a lot of articles in the iOS community that helped me to learn quickly in the iOS kind of thing. Articles are the small part of a code. They explain those things, and you'll get more understanding it. And if you want to understand more, you can refer the books on those particular topics and improvise those things.
There's one more question from Adarsh, and Adarsh wants to know that what is the correct time to start the preparation for a SD role in campus placements, and he's one of the second years who is not in a CSE branch.
So correct time to start is something like, this is also the correct time to start it. When you are in the second year, you'll think about what kind of there are a lot of communities around in software itself. Choose the correct community which you are more interested on, and start digging how to learn those things in their software. And I would suggest like, you can start from second year as well. There is nothing. And when you start learning early, over a period of time, if you put a lot of time, and the uh, more time you get it, like around 2 years, 2 to 3 years you will get it. And over 2 years, and small part of every day, it will help to grow the career in the particular things. And first you need to choose that which part of things you want to work in the software, either mobile or backend or the machine learning, or there are a lot of other communities as well. You can choose those things and see what is trending now, and that way also it helps you in these things. And I continued with iOS because in India there are less people in iOS communities, and that also has a good growth. So I also continued working on the iOS itself. Yeah.
So we have one more question from Akshaya. For a complete beginner, any tips to make an app?
Okay. So any tips is something like, what I choose is something like for app development kind of thing, right? Uh, there are a lot of ideas you get it, right? So I want particular kind of feature in one app. So those are the good starting points to start with those things. And if you have any idea, and you can start working on that idea and continue developing that application. And also you can see the GitHub, and a lot of open source are there to how to start with those things. And even if you want to start iOS or Android, any platform is, both platforms are good. And you have, you can see the GitHub, and you can understand. And also there are a lot of tutorials how to make the application, and also free online courses are also available. You can start with those things. Even what I would suggest is like, just if you have an idea, or if you want to build an application, you start working that application and find it how to solve each and every small parts of your work, so that you learn more quickly. And also in the starting it will be very slow kind of a thing. As you learn those things, and you'll find like how to solve this particular problem in application, in app. So how do you connect this hardware and software, and how do you tell this particular sensor to start it, and all those things. That way you can find it out. You'll dig that problem into smaller parts and find it those smaller part solutions, and complete those application as well. Yeah.
So we have BG asking, where do you get the inspiration for your portfolio idea, application ideas?
So majority of the things I get ideas from the GitHub, and also the podcast. And also there are a lot of articles around internet to see that how the people are solving the particular things in their application. And also even in the podcast as well, they discuss a lot of ideas, how do they solve those things, and even they explain those things. And also I have seen like in the lot of podcasts, the people from all over different companies join there and discuss over a certain problem, and you'll get a lot of ideas around it. And also you'll get the understanding from all the companies, how they particularly solve this particular problem. And everyone has different approaches, and you'll see the trade-offs, and you'll get the context for them, how it is working for that, so that whether it is works for you or not. And if it is working for you, and how do you change it for your particular application. Is it completely replica does work, or you need to transform some way to work it out for your application. Majority of ideas I used to get it from the podcast, and also the GitHub trending topics. That way you'll get more what is trending, and that way, and choose what other people are not doing it. So the things that are important. And and also you can find a lot of automation kind of things are there. That way also you can get the articles from all over the newsletters. Yeah.
Uh, so there is Sharon, and Sharon wants to know, can you please elaborate your initial stages of your learning process?
Okay. So my initial learning stages were about like while in college I took the particular Android app. I started working on this Android app, and while I was working on that Android app, I started finding that how to solve with the particular things. So I searched on Google, and even I also very new at that time the Java language as well. So I started with the basic syntax, understanding the basic syntax of the Java, and started coding on the Android app, and finding that how to solve this particular thing in the Java language, and also how do I apply that in Android ecosystem. And that way I started learning the smaller parts and started working towards a goal kind of a thing. So I need to build this particular application over a period of time. So I started finding those things, uh, and you can put a lot of effort in that. That way you'll learn that while you create those things, right, you'll get a lot of ideas, and also you'll find that which way it is working and which way it is not working as well. So the more you fail it, the more you get it. Like this way it is not working, this way it will work for us. Yeah.
So there is next question. I think Sharon, you got your answer. Monish wants to ask, can you tell about your projects?
So my projects are something I used to build applications for my utility kind of a thing. So if I don't find any of the particular feature in particular application which I needed, so I create myself smaller applications which help my day-to-day work, and also whatever the repetitive tasks I used to create an automation kind of a things, so that way I can spend more time on the newer things. Repetitive work you can do with an automation kind of thing. Yeah.
Monish, I think you got your answer. Vignesh, is learning Flutter a good idea as we can develop apps for both iOS and Android?
Okay. So I tell you, like, there are a lot of platforms around where you can build a hybrid application like React Native, Flutter, and also Xamarin, and also there are a lot of other things are also there in the community. And the Flutter, I worked on the one small application on the Flutter. So in Flutter is something is like Flutter is still in beta, and when you see with the React Native and this world, right? So React Native, which is on the JavaScript kind of a things, so which sends the JSON to the language and it decodes into that other language, and it works on that one. And Flutter is something like they have the rendering engine kind of a thing, so they work on the rendering engine. And for Flutter kind of things, when you work with the Flutter, right, there are a lot of problems. So it is very new, and also not much community around it, so it is still growing it. So, and also there are a lot of applications, there are very less sources to learn for it. And also when the when you want to work with a particular sensor, or when you want to work with a particular hardware, right, in apps, right, so that way the Flutter doesn't give much flexibility. You have to write this things in the particular language or the particular hardware, and you have to expose it to the Flutter so that Flutter can use it. That way, the sometimes whenever the Apple or Google releases new things, right, to support those things, Flutter takes a lot of time to get that supported. And whenever there is some changes in the Apple or Google engine while rendering and anything, so Flutter will suffer from that. Those kind of problems are there with the hybrid approach. Yeah.
Okay, I think you got your answer, Vignesh. BG, what do you think? Future of native application? Do you think something like React Native or Flutter will take over Swift and Objective C soon? If yes, how do you balance learning each of these different platforms? How do you do that?
So I while I was in Swiggy, I worked on the React Native application as well, which is for the delivery app. So I saw that what are the trade-offs with the React Native. React Native, it depends on the what kind of application you are building it, and how what are the your platform percentage kind of a thing. Let's say you have Android or iOS, and let's say your application needs more animations or more kind of a uh, heavy lifting kind of a thing, then React Native doesn't support it, because React Native has everything is asynchronous, and React Native takes for performance. When you want to improvise the performance, you have to write it in the native and expose it to the React Native. And there is also a lot of problems with the this hybrid approach. And so I worked on the React Native as well. So even whatever the language it is, I continued working on React Native or Swift is something. React Native is also in the JavaScript, which is something like you have to understand the iOS ecosystem, and that way you can use through React Native. And Swift is also a good language to start with it. And Swift is the supported by Apple, and also it is also nowadays people are also using it for the server side. And even for the Google is working on Swift for the TensorFlow, where they have a lot of languages, but they choose the Swift language as for the uh, community, because of there are a lot of good reasons for that, and even Apple is backing, and also there are a lot of community around it, and also iOS ecosystem is built on top of the Swift and Objective C. I don't see that it's going away from.
Okay, there's one. I think BG, you got your answer. BG, I feel you were in the yesterday's webinar as well, right? So, Nandan, can you give me an example of how you learned a new technology via GitHub trending topics?
Okay, so if you see GitHub trending, github.com/trending, you'll see the lot of language. You'll see the lot of trending topics, trending repositories. In trending repositories, you can see for which are the things that is useful for you. Let's say if you are solving for a particular kind of a thing, whether if you are solving for a performance kind of a related things, and in a particular, if you want a particular language and that language, and also you can see the repositories, trending repositories, and when you see the trending repositories and when you see the particular things, how they are solving it. Let's say you have a performance issue. How do you solve that performance issue? You need to profile it, and you need to understand what are the bottlenecks for that. So for those kind of a profiling kind of a things, people have a lot of open source things for debugging those things. So when you see the trending topics, you'll see it is useful how they are solving it. And even if you see like big companies like Facebook, Google, Uber, they have open source lot of their things what they use it internally. If you see, right, Facebook released the build system, which is the universal build system, which you can run it any language kind of thing. Google also released the Bazel. Bazel is the one which came first, and Bazel is something like you can build any language, language agnostic build system. So when you see those kind of things, you'll get inspiration that you can use those projects for your day-to-day things, and you can understand that how do you improvise those things in your workflow kind of things.
We have one more question for you. I think how have you made any apps related to COVID-19 relief moment?
There are a lot of apps in the GitHub itself. So I tried a lot of apps, and I saw that majority of the apps, they show the what is the count of how many people are suffering from all over the world. And I felt like there are a lot of applications are there, and I saw that I didn't develop anything, and I saw these applications and find it out like what are the things I can learn from those applications. There are a lot of trending when you see this trending topics. The COVID related applications are more. Yeah, I think the startups. I think.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think there is one conversation going on in the group chat as well. There are a few questions I wanted to ask to you, Sai.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
how was it a big leap coming from, for example, if we take mining, you were a mining engineer, right? And
Yeah.
you just did something which was very not it's not imaginable by me as well, and by anybody other as well. So, what did actually push you to take this big leap from doing mining engineering and then coming into software development?
So if you see, right, even in mining as well, I got like 9 out of 10 CGPA. And also while I was working in college, so my interests were around the software itself. So from the 4th year and 5th year, I started, I even asked my professor to give the software related things as well. So in that 4th and 5th year, I worked on the image processing and also image processing and Python related work. So which helps in mining as well, and also I can learn the programming as well. So that way I choose my project and worked on that project for 4th year and 5th year. So that way that has also helped me in my foundation for the software kind of a thing. And mobile apps, that is something which I'm interested more on. So that way I started with the Android apps, and then afterwards I got the iOS opportunity. Then afterwards I continued with the iOS, because iOS is community is very good, and also the iOS ecosystem is also very good in learning and also those kind of things. But when you see the Android, right, you'll have a lot of open sources available, and when you see the this thing, Android code is open source, but iOS code is not open source, and you won't have much resource to learn for iOS, and that is much more challenging. And now the Apple enabled a lot of learning kind of things, so people can also start learning. Yeah.
Okay, we just got few questions from as well. So, is there any special ingredient what you look when you are hiring somebody?
So what I see is something like whether he is a self learner, or whether he's a person book kind of a learner kind of things, or whether he's something like tutorial way of learning kind of thing. So I see if there are people self learner, I feel it like those people are more learn from that, because they try to fail it every time when they do it. So self learning gives you a lot of opportunities in learning. When you see the application which is already developed, you'll see that how to solve it, and you don't get your perspective kind of things. When you see any tutorials or any kind of a code, you'll see their perspective itself. And when you start when you learn by yourself, you'll find it a lot of issues, what is causing, what is working well, what is not working well. And that way I choose people whether they are self learner kind of a thing. Otherwise those people, we have to push them to get it, learn those things and start working on this. More the self learner, because when you start with iOS or any kind of a community, right, there are a lot of things to learn it. So you have to be more self learner, because there are, every time you won't get the online courses or online tutorials to solve it. So more you be more self learner will be helpful. Yeah.
So there is one more question. I think Nandan wants to ask: is certification more helpful or doing more projects?
Okay. So, to be frank, I didn't do any certifications in mobile apps and these things. So, more projects will help you in learning the things in the particular community kind of a things. And I think like more projects is something more helpful kind of a thing, because the more hands-on work you have, the more the challenges you have already solved it. So that way, when you see the certifications, right, you'll see that there's a learning kind of a thing, and you'll have some tutorials, or you have some exams for that. Then you solve it, that's it. So when you do with the more projects, right, you'll have more exposure to the different problems. So my take was on the more projects, that helps more.
Okay. I think Nandan, you got your answer. Farid wants to ask: is this okay to go for a job after a 3 years bachelor degree in computer science, or a master's needs to be done?
So there's nothing related to the masters or the bachelor degrees, because it depends on how you learn, and how you develop your skills much faster. And because everyone in the community try to learn it and grow it, so I don't see that masters is a compulsory for doing a job. Or it is okay to go for a masters to have the particular, if you are interested on in particular things, where the particular masters, let's say you are interested on machine learning, you can go with the masters for the machine learning, where you'll get more exposure towards the learning for the machine learning kind of thing. And otherwise it will take for you to learn years to get to that world. And when you have the master degree or those kind of things, you'll get to understand that those things in much earlier stage. Yeah.
I think Falak, you got your answer. there is one more thing I wanted to ask, Sai. So you
Yeah,
were from a tier one college, right? But
yeah.
there are few people who are from tier two, tier three colleges. And do you feel, is there any specific kind of resource, or is there any specific kind of documentation, or is it anywhere else? Like, do they need to prefer something more from? I think I'm not very clear with my concept over here, but you were from a tier 1 college, and people who are in tier 2 and tier 3 colleges, which are in not the same set of degree, they are not getting a CS degree. Do you feel they also can just pull them up and they can do the same stuff what you have driven?
So what I would suggest is something like disciplined learning. Comes everything that whether you are tier 1 college or tier 2 college, and what I prefer is something like the knowledge over a period of time that helps more. Instead of that, I have seen a lot of people in community as well, in iOS and Android community, where they have started with the different kind of a thing, and they came to the iOS and they are doing very well. And also it doesn't tier 1 and tier 2 doesn't matter at all until when you learn more things. That way you'll have the more exposure to those things. And I don't think that tier 1 and tier 2 is necessary for any kind of a things, because tier 1 and tier 2, even I did on mining itself, so I hardly use any of the mining kind of a things. And so what I would suggest is something like the more disciplined way of learning that helps you towards your goal. Other than that, tier 1 tier 2 doesn't matter.
Any other questions you want to ask Sai about, or any other questions you feel? So, guys, use this time because you won't be having a lead Swiggy iOS developer in the room. So you can use this time and you can just go for a few questions. I think we have just 5 more minutes to go. Is there any question people you want to ask, or you are having any problems with Swiggy and you can tell Sai about it? Okay. Uh, how important are hackathons?
Yeah, hackathons are also important when you are trying for the interviews and this kind of a things, because hackathons keeps you interview kind of environment kind of a thing. The more you do the hackathons, the more you will be uh, having the interview kind of a culture kind of a thing. So you'll be having a time bound kind of a things to solve it. When you don't attend hackathons, right, you don't have a time bound to solve the things. So when you have a time bound kind of a things, then that forces you to solve in that particular time itself. So I suggest like hackathons are the better place to practice the interview kind of environment. That hackathons also helps in interviews as well. Yeah, on day.
I just want to add into the hackathon thing. You can always check on Skillenza for any upcoming hackathons, and you can always do that. And on a day-to-day basis, how do you structure learning part along with the tight schedule in work?
So every day I used to commute around like 1.5 hours. So during that time, I used to listen to the podcast. So I used to in a day I used to write it down the things that I need to solve the first thing in the day. So what are the more interesting kind of a work? So that I start with my day. And so while you're commuting or these kind of things, the best way to learn something is like podcasts are the good to start with it. And even in the tight schedule as well, so I keep time for myself to for the learning kind of thing. So every day evening I used to keep it at least 1 hour for learning those kind of things. And also uh, when you get when you are commuting, you'll get a lot of time for the learning kind of things. In the morning I used to read the articles. In the evening I used to listen to the podcast. After that, if I get any ideas, I used to try it over the night to see that if it is working for me or not.
Uh, I I think your question is answered, Nandan. Akshay wants to ask: are hackathons useful beyond interviews?
Yeah, hackathons are also helpful beyond the interviews, because when you have a time bound kind of thing, right? So when you have any particular project, you need to solve it in the particular time. So that way you get the time bound kind of a thing. So for achieving the time for to solve those kind of things for in a project, right? Hackathons also helpful. Yeah.
Mm, there is so BG wants the link to the podcast you were referring to. I think you can reach out to
Yeah.
Sai.
You can reach out to me on Twitter, Sai Ram Kotha. So I can share you those things, what I'm referring to it. So in the community, there are a lot of podcasts running through it. So I have like around 10 podcasts I used to listen it towards it. I can share you those things.
Munish wants to ask, how was your experience as an iOS developer at Swiggy?
So I have been working with Swiggy for the last 4 years. So I got a lot of opportunities. When I joined the Swiggy, used to is more or less the early stage kind of a things where we are three people in Swiggy, and where we worked on the multiple things as well. And over the period of time, I got an opportunity to work on multiple things as well, backend and also the React Native and multiple other stuff as well. So that Swiggy also, not only the iOS career, it helped me growing towards the full stack kind of a thing. So Swiggy gives the opportunities to learn and excel in other platforms as well, not only the iOS. So I got chance in working on those things.
I think Abhijit has a really great question over here. Important of data structure and algorithm. So Abhijit has a medium level MERN project, test written and implemented concepts like debouncing, throttling, redux, saga, etc. Would I be rejected for sucking at algorithms?
So a lot of people give the DSN algorithms for problem solving to test it out how good you are in the problem solving. So that way people, some companies and most of the companies, they see that problem solving is a much more important those kind of things. So problem solving is more important. That is the reason why people give the DSN algo to understand the things how good you are at solving the problems. Okay, so not only the particular DSN algo, how good you are solving the particular logic wise and all those things. Even it also depends on the company's requirement as well. So some companies, even though you're, even though it is not, even though the algo round didn't go well, they can go forward for that one. It depends on the company as well. So I would suggest like you can go through the DSN algo and learn it over a period of time. Keep it like 1 hour per day, and over a month or so, you'll have a lot of things in place for learning this.
And I feel okay. So what? So SH wants to ask. So what is the difference between bond sign page op or without bond sign page op, which is preferable? I think it's a very broad question he has asked.
Yeah. So I don't know about the bond sign job. I didn't go towards the bond sign job. So I worked with the startup. So many of the startups doesn't have the bond sign kind of thing. It depends on you as well. So if you are, it is like subjective kind of thing. Like it depends on the people as well. So my take was without bond sign, so that you'll have much more freedom to learn and grow in that.
I think that that's it. That was the session, and it was a pleasure to have you, Sai, to have you on this. And it was very insightful, and it was very specific what our audience wanted to know. And thank you so much for coming, Sai.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
thank you so much, audience, for being here. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. Thanks,
You can
everyone.
join us for the next webinars. We are running the webinar series for it will revolve around development and it will revolve around everything. So you can join us again for the next webinar series. Thank you so much, guys, for having fun, and thank you so much, guys.